Let's go through an example of how to build up a KPI tree, starting from management and ending up on the shop floor with what we put on the boards. Hello, I'm Tom. Welcome to my channel, where we'll talk about continuous improvement in an industrial setting. In this video, it's about the KPI tree and how to build it up. Well, one of the questions you posed, I had this video on how to design KPIs and what things to take into account. But let's also just put a practical example in there and discuss, how the theory comes into practice. Really great question. Happy to do a video like that. So let's dive in it. But I will rehash a little bit of the theory, of course, because this is a learning opportunity, not just one example of a KPI tree. And the main thing I also want to share with you this time is that when you're building up a KPI tree, so we are talking about in the KPI tree, it comes a bit from this Christmas tree, right? That starts thin at the top and then spans out, and it sort of has extra triangles underneath. The whole idea is that you have only a few corporate goals, targets, and that you cascade that down into your operational units, your factories, your departments, and every time you sort of make a new triangle of this one corporate goal becomes a bunch of KPIs on the lower level, which really can fan out into this huge Christmas tree of KPIs. The idea is not that any of the units underneath has a whole bunch of KPIs. So when you see that happening, you know you are on the wrong track. Stop that. But the idea is that you have like one corporate entity, but there are a number of business units. And there are a number of factories in each business unit, and there are a number of departments, a number of lines in each department. And like this, all of those units, they all get, somewhere between 3 and 7-ish or so. Okay, let's take it broad, somewhere between 3 and 9, with the ideal indeed being 5, 6, 7 KPIs. And if you have a whole bunch of lines, all of those lines can have, let's say, 4 KPIs. That means many more KPIs than the 9 or so that you have on top of your organization. That's where the tree effect comes from. But this also has a different way of layering it. And I told you to make layers of KPIs and build also on the layers of the hierarchy you have in your organization. This goes a bit more abstract. There can be multiple layers in the system I will be showing here, and some will also overlap a bit. But it's the idea of, and these two systems, they are the same. They're just different names for it. It is the idea of that you have key performance indicators, operational performance indicators, and then key action indicators. Or the same, right, but just with slightly different words, key management indicators, key performance indicators, and key action indicators. This is the idea that you are trying to achieve something, and the left side, this first version, has it as you're trying to perform something and get results. These are the money type of KPIs, right? These are how much product are we making, how much cost is involved, what market share can we reach. So real goal-oriented KPIs, the goals of the business. And that's why they are the performance in this way of putting them. And then the operational performance indicators, they are not so much about the direct money, they're about all of those things that cause profit or loss. So a good OEE, and we'll get to that one also in the example, but it's about the waste percentage that you have, or specific lines being implemented. That's more of a project type of deliverable. But all of these things that by themselves, they don't directly make or break the money, but they need to be in place. So these are the operational ways of showing how your business is doing. And if you have them nicely in place, you will almost certainly meet your key performance indicators. And then you've got your key action indicators. And here the idea goes down one further to what actions do my people actually need to take? And with people, we mainly here assume shop floor personnel, but it basically means what do we need to do with our production assets, and what do the people around them specifically need to do? So these are also not breakdown time. That's not an action. They are, by the way, also not order 59 nuts. because that is an action, but it is really a one-off action. The whole idea of a key action indicator is what are we doing at a frequent rate to make sure that our equipment is in good shape, that we're doing the correct things, that the whole operation is running well, so that we are achieving our global performance. And then it's built up in these ways. Generally, those things actually cost a bit of money because they are the way we do things, but you know that if you do them correctly, then they make money. Right? Now the same idea, because I said this is the same system, the same idea, just with slightly different names, is in key management indicators, key performance indicators, and key action indicators. Now, why I put it down here specifically is that tricky part, right? Some people call the key performance indicator that thing that you are trying to achieve as a company. Others will call the key performance indicator how you judge, let's say, one factory, one unit within your organization, and the management indicators are those big things you steer on. There is some shifting in where people might put the actual number, OEE, where is it exactly? But in general, you have this idea of split between what are you trying to achieve, how does my organization have to perform to reach these more money and company goals, and what do our people need to do on a daily basis to make sure that it happens. If you think of quite a popular system, the OKR, so the objectives and key results, that is very close to that top part as well. So you've got your objectives, your things you want to reach, and you know that there are some key results that need to be hit. Now, I think that that system is better suited for a bit more of a project or maybe services, but especially sort of a project-based organization, and also for those departments and those management initiatives that are more of an improvement push. So within continuous improvement, very good system to use. Just for the shop floor, I think it is sometimes misleading us a bit. OKRs, good system, but you can do a lot with just this KPI system. Now, my preference is a bit on that one because it more clearly shows that's what managers want, this is what we need to deliver to perform, and we need to put actions into it. And at each of those levels, you have the key in front because you can think of many more of those indicators that are all important as well, but we need to focus. We need to select a few that we really want to focus on this year, and the other indicators, so you've got some other management indicators that you will also track, you just don't really steer it that much. And perhaps, next year or in 3 years or so, they do become more relevant. Depends a bit. Okay, so having that out of the way, we will go for a management performance action indicator tree. And here, what we want to achieve as a company, and that also, I guarantee you, if you're building a KPI tree, is the best place to start at the top. So some people say that top-down KPI pushing through the organization is outdated and will not work. Not true. The objectives you set need to come from the top. How exactly? So what levels of improvement or which numbers? There we've got a valid point. So that we'll probably want to do bottom up. But first we decide what is important to our company. And this can be something that is important just for the next 3 years. We really want to focus on something, because for any company, in the end, money you make, but also the volume and the market share and the quality of your product, those things are all important to a company, to any company. But what is now important as a strategic drive for your organization? And for my organization here, they have 2 things to really focus on. And that is, we want to increase our volume, serve the market. Basically, increasing the volume is another way of saying we're going to sell more and we should have a margin on those sales. So we get more money, right? More sales with a profit means more total profit. But my example company says we want to focus on expanding volume. You will see this in quite a number of companies. Sometimes they already have the market but simply cannot push the product into it. Sometimes you need both. You need to increase your production but also increase your sales and marketing because you just want to grow. This is already an interesting step, right? Because the next level under it, and we are going to go into the industry because that's what this channel focuses on, but from these same major indicators, these management indicators that the company wants to do, you drive things that are happening in your operations, but also in your supply chain, your sales, your finance. So you drive multiple, completely different types of departments, of subunits within your corporation. Now, what this company also says, we want to grow, but the labor cost, that should not seriously increase. We should at least not increase labor cost per ton, right? So some increase in labor maybe, but we already saw in benchmarks and historical analyses, these are not numbers you pick up just out of the sky. We saw that our operation is not very lean in their labor cost. So for sure, don't increase labor cost per ton, preferably decrease it. The main one, let's get some volume. Now, then we go into the operations, into the make part, the supply chain manufacturing part of our organization. And those managers, they're going to think about, okay, so how do we have to perform? How does our operation have to perform to meet such goals? What can we see as results still from our factories, from our manufacturing, to get to a better volume? And the clear one here for our industrial organization is the OEE. But these directors, they are no fools. They know that OEE is quite a wide type of indicator. It has a lot in it. So the influenceability by the production team is sometimes a bit difficult, right? In the end, you control OEE, of course, in all of the aspects, how you plan, how you do plant maintenance, how many breakdowns, things like that. But can we focus a bit more? They also make a translation and they say, we are interested in total OEE of at least our main lines, but we want our factories to specifically focus on unplanned stops, which means short stops, breakdowns, that part, right? Everything that you do as a setup, as a cleaning, as plant maintenance, yes, it'll take time, but we believe, and this again comes from some analysis that they did, we believe that our factories are not reliable enough. So the unplanned stops and the unplanned slowing down of production, that is what we want to tackle. So here, this is not for everyone, right? If you want to improve OEE in your company, it might very well be that your focus should be on cleaning times and cleaning cycles. This is a decision you make when you are doing in the infinite loops, the visioning loop specifically, right? You check your trendings, you check your previous results, variations in those results. You do some comparisons, benchmarking with other factories in your organization, similar factories outside of your organization. You try to see where can we make the biggest step. And this management team has decided we will specifically focus on unplanned stops. So we want to know OEE, but we want to specifically and a bit more frequently focus on these unplanned stops. Now, what does this do with the management indicators that they had? Because of course, we still also need to get these corporate goals. Now, when your OEE increases, you have more production capacity. So this is a brilliant one. It automatically feeds into volume. But also, when we expand our effective time within the total time, increase the OEE, we do not increase labor cost. In fact, per ton, they will probably go down a bit because we're making more tons with the same labor pool. Remember that that same labor has to be at the line when we are in a breakdown or in cleaning or the line is just not performing too well. they are next to the line. They are operating it. So if we increase the OEE, we make more volume with the same labor pool. Very nice. Which means that for this organization, perhaps I'll just stick with OEE. They'll say, look, reporting upwards, we're going to improve OEE. This is our plan to do it. We'll come to that in a bit, but we're going to improve the OEE, and that'll help us with both of those management indicators. And this is a good thing because there will be plenty of other things to focus on. So if you can do it like this, great. And I took this by design because it shows that sometimes it is not just this pyramid, this tree going wider and wider. If you pick your operational targets, but also afterwards it can be done with management of the actions at the shop floor. If you pick them in a smart way, sometimes you pick one or two actions or one or two indicators that will really get you the whole scope of what you are focusing on this year. And of course, unplanned stops, that is part of the OEE, so they will calculate an impact on that. Now, when we have this as our performance indicator, so we're going to steer our company towards these and then really steer the factories, the operational part, to improve the efficiency of their production lines. What are we going to ask our shop floor personnel to do? What are we going to do inside the factories to make sure that we reduce those unplanned stops? So there are plenty of things we need to do to run a factory correctly, right? All the quality checks, and definitely also in there. We will need to perform training, we will need to pay personnel on time, keep them happy, all kinds of things. But if our focus is to improve the OEE of the lines, to get more capacity, focusing on unplanned stops, well, perhaps we have to focus on preventive maintenance. It might, especially at first, cost a bit of OEE. Preventive maintenance is definitely also one of the time sinks for OEE. But if we have a preventive maintenance plan and we thought about it, then the action indicators is that we actually do it as needed. So we're going to focus on our maintenance department mostly, but also operators that are trained in specific maintenance tasks to do those preventive maintenance tasks, to correctly do the inspections, to react to things, to make sure that our maintenance tickets that are in the maintenance management system, they are done on time, in full. We've got the stuff there, we've got trained people doing the inspections, but we're doing our preventive maintenance tasks, and we're doing that on time and taking correct action for it. And one of the more common indicators that you use for that is the on-time completion of preventive maintenance and inspection tasks, and the on-time completion of not breakdown but repair tasks within the maintenance system. See, and here we get into maybe some detail on how we generally see those maintenance tasks. It is that you have breakdown repair, that is just immediately right now we need to fix the machine. That is a task for a mechanic. They just go out there, fix it. You also have, we see that something is wrong with the line, but we can continue producing. And you know what? We'll just sort of fix it for now. Sometimes they come out of a breakdown that is barely fixed. We fix it so that we can continue the production run, get it over with, and repair it then. Or even we don't have the real part that we need, or this is not a problem yet. We just know that it will be a problem in a week. All kinds of things like that that make us say, we will plan this in some time. Next cleaning, next week, when the part is in, things like that. It probably doesn't hurt production yet. It's a bit of a risk, but we can run for now. Those are corrective maintenance, but not breakdown related. Then you've got your modifications, which are changes away from the basic condition, but with the same idea, right? But almost always with lower priority, especially lower urgency, because they might indeed improve our machine, and we want that. But if we leave it as is, the system also functions, right? So you've got those ones, and then you've got your preventive maintenance tasks, preventive maintenance jobs. Those ones. So we want them completed, but also that second category, the corrective maintenance orders, because they often come from inspections or preventive maintenance tasks, and they also come from all of the AM checks and all kinds of checks that the operators do. So if we have those two, then we can check preventive maintenance. The planned or preventive maintenance jobs and the corrective jobs. Done. Right? 90% of them done within time, or 80 or 95. Nice action indicator. And then the other thing, much more focused on the operator, we also say we want our operators to follow the setup checklist. And we want our supervisors to check it. And we want our reliability engineer or whoever really has detailed knowledge of what is happening to do a spot check from time to time. Right, so these checklists that were designed to properly set up the machine, in this example that came probably from mistakes being made in the past, going for breakdowns, going for wear and tear on the machine, or just getting into problems later in the run. If you don't set up your machine correctly, you understand, you get into unplanned stops, but some machines it's very easy. Others, in this example, the company really needed to have those good setup checks, so they do that completion check. And also the control by supervisors and specialists. Those are actions that we put into place to improve performance, to reach our management goals. And when this system is in place, then we are also at a very good place to say, by how much? So if we put this into place and we feel confident that that will work within the next 4 months, we'll have the system fully in place and really start steering at it, then this year we may be reducing unplanned stops by 60%. So those critical lines where we're going to do this first, we'll have almost a full year of 60% fewer unplanned stops. Then we roll it out broader in the factory. We also get the other 2/3 of our lines into the system. They will benefit from that same system for about 3-4 months. And like this, you bottom up, build up, by how much are we going to reduce unplanned stops on which lines, because remember the whole sort of pyramid tree, this Christmas tree idea. OEE of the total factory is a nonsense KPI. OEE is measured on production lines. Now, if your factory has one line, you'll probably have a plant OEE, but a factory that definitely has separate production lines don't match or average or whatever that OEE it is. If they are producing exactly the same product, maybe, but it is a KPI, it doesn't tell you much, right? So you'll have a bunch of these anyway, a couple on priority lines and on the other lines, or maybe by product grouping. But that means that you now get a mathematically calculatable number of how much the OEE, but also the volume goes up. Since in this system we keep the labor cost at the absolute cost the same, we can just divide the current labor cost by the volume and then give us what we expect as the new target, the new level that we will budget for next year, 2 years, 3 years, based on how we increase this. Now, these calculations, they are not really made at this level. That is something you do at the operational level. And so these two, they nicely feed in to that operational side, the performance-driven part. Here is where true bottom-up improvement of indicators, improvement of performance can be calculated. And then you can put targets onto, okay, we've got the same lines, we'll keep the same labor force, but by doing these things, and there will be a bit more underneath when you do a full KPI tree, we can increase the volume from 9 million to 9.8 million units this year. Things like that, or maybe you have a much nicer increase and you go to 12.4 million units. But that is how you build up the KPI tree. It sort of makes new things on all of the lines. This one, by the way, preventive maintenance, is probably something you will do for your whole plant, just like OEE sort of took a number of things. We've got unplanned stops, line 1, line 2, line 3, 3 KPIs. Preventive maintenance completion, 1 KPI for all of them and your utilities. So it doesn't always fan out. But what you don't want to do, that is the sort of traditional KPI system I see quite often, is we want to have more volume. Smart manager will say OEE. So let's give the plant managers also clear targets. We want OEE of your plant and your main lines. Which of course means that our shop floor needs to be pushing their lines and need to effectively run them. And in fact, you can do this per shift, right? Your people only work there at the line for 8 or 12 hours or whatever. You have shifts in your country, but they should steer their own results, not just rely on the whole day or the whole week. And like this, we have a KPI tree of OEE of the company, OEE per plant, which is nice because we can compare it between plants. Then OEE of every line in our company that we, of course, will show daily and weekly and monthly. And every shift will see their own OEE and they can nicely compare. And you get this challenge, you get this way of comparing and going like a race. And this drives up company OEE. And the main assumption is okay, right? It's nice, and I understand that measuring OEE at the shift level per line is in the end the best way to fully encompass OEE at the line level at a larger time frame, which is the best way to fully encompass OEE at the plant level. But don't go for this full cover. Right? Here in volume and labor, OEE is not the only thing. If you want to reduce labor costs, or at least keep them the same, you also have to look at labor efficiency, things like how much training am I doing, what are my illness rates, all kinds of labor specific things. For volume, you can also work on increasing the capacity of your lines itself, the nameplate capacity, or adding an extra line, or all kinds of things. OEE is not the only one. But the management decision that you make, in this example, is that we're going to go for OEE. And even more, this year, we're not going to focus on all aspects of OEE. We're going to make sure we increase the reliability of our lines. So this management team picked only the unplanned stop part of OEE to be really key. The other parts, the cleaning time, the preventive maintenance time itself, in fact, they are also performance indicators, but they are not key. So they do not come here. And the same actually happens at the line level. Don't pick everything, but pick those parts that are really key, those key actions that you believe, not just believe in, right? You did some analysis, but that you believe will have the biggest contribution to the overlying performance, that has the biggest contribution to your management indication. And like that, you build up a KPI tree. And this, in fact, is an OEE tree that almost doesn't have OEE in it. So I hope that gave you some more handles on how to build it up. The thing is, I cannot really make, definitely not an exhaustive list of all kinds of OEE trees, even OEE trees, but KPI trees. Because your company will have to make their own decisions about what are we focusing on, what do we really want to know. The one thing I can give you is that if you work with OEE from top to bottom, or even a number of safety incidents from top to bottom, it's very often that I see at a shift level that we are measuring how many lost time accidents did we have the last shift on line A, wow, I sort of hope that entire factories have maybe 1 or 2 lost time accidents a year. I mean, we're not even hoping for that. We're hoping for 0 and trying to get to 0, but on one line in one shift, this indicator is always green, except that 1 day a year maybe. And for this one line, that 1 day once every 10 years or so. Nonsense KPI for a shift level line board. So you have to do something else to get to that lost time accident thingy. And that is, which actions are we taking? Did we, in the safety case, at least see one dangerous situation around this line in this shift? Because we are fully confident that something wasn't optimal. And we want every operator to be looking for what might be a risk. Great action, right? That is something that you will get most of the out of those shifts, or at least half or so of them. You will get something. You can discuss it and prevent other stuff. And that's the same with these setup checklists. That is something your operators can influence. This is something your operators and mechanics can influence. That drives into the unplanned stops part, which is already much more difficult to grasp. It'll do the performance of your plant, and that will lead to volume and labor cost. No operator, or even a team leader or supervisor, is thinking about the labor cost per ton at a daily or shift level or at a line level. It is unmanageable. You just need to get the product out. No factory will say, right, we have done basically with our labor budget for this week because we had to replace Phil and Jeff who were ill, so we'll close on Friday afternoon. You just take the extra cost that week. So those top management indicators, performance indicators, do not work at the bottom level. Make sure that you get action indicators. Now, I hope that triggered some thoughts, maybe some frustrations with the KPI system in your organization. This is a hot topic for discussion in many organizations. So I'm also very interested in the experiences you have. Do drop a comment down below and hit that like button if you like the explanation. For now, I wish you the best of luck with your performance management. And as always, don't forget to enjoy the continuous improvement journey.